And Facebook, coming in YouTube, getting ready to start my show called Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. Make yourselves at home. Thanks for being here today. Gonna adjust my camera just a bit over here on Facebook. There we go. Now you get the whole picture there. So welcome in, make yourselves at home. We're gonna start over in about 2 minutes over on Instagram. So thank you for being here today. Hello Kira and Norma and Debbie. Thank you guys for popping in today on the show. Got a great show that kind of talks about kind of breaking down where miscommunication happens. I feel like with all the things happening online right now, with everything people are talking about, what I'm going to share here today might help explain why, when things are even explained very clearly, sometimes people are misunderstood. So I'm excited to share this one here with you guys soon. I see you guys there on YouTube live stream. Thank you for being here today. And thank you for being here as well. What's up, Tracy? What's up, Nancy? We're gonna get started over on my Instagram live here in about 1 minute. Hello, Debbie. Thank you for being here today on Jimmy Rants. I like doing these philosophical ones too, because sometimes you can get into the practicality of things in the keto diet. What's up, Hank? You can get caught up in kind of specifics about nutrition and things like that. But sometimes you kind of need to peel back layers and see what's going on philosophically about why things don't always fall into place like you think they do. Hello, Kate. Thank you for being here as well. So it's that time, you guys. We're going to go ahead and get started over on my Instagram live. And yeah, got a great show in store for you here today. So thank you for being here. All right, let me get the camera situated straight. And here we go. Do you ever feel misunderstood even though you speak very clearly? Find out why here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It will take you straight to IGTV to watch today's episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. You gotta go follow me over on Instagram. I am at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live, just like all these amazing people coming in right here, right now. Thank you guys for watching live here today. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page, where Joanne and Jude and Catherine and Michelle all are coming in right now to watch today's show. Finally, we also have my YouTube streamers over here, so thank you guys for that. And I really appreciate you guys being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live here on Instagram, we do have it on IGTV, so go check it out there. We also throw all the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in the keyword Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show, or youtube.com/livinglowcarbman. And then we have a special bonus episode today, by the way. On Wednesdays on my podcast called the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show, I am now recording a video straight here from Jimmy Rant Studio, and we post that video, which is the podcast that I air on Wednesdays on LLVLC, and so that is available today. Go check it out. Had this really beautiful conversation with a lady named Shelby, and Shelby kind of got into a bit of the history about how we got into making fun of fat people and how it started as a racial thing. Really an incredible interview, went in all kinds of directions. So go check that out now over on the YouTube channel while you're there. Finally, you can see all the past episodes over at JimmyRants.com, the official website for this show. And if you get value out of what we do here on Jimmy Rants, then please give value back to me. Click on that Patreon link, and really any donation would be very, very helpful. I refuse to have sponsors on this show. I want it to always be free. But if you get value out of it, then please give value back to me, as so many of you have. So thank you for that. Okay, today we're going to shift gears away from some of the things I've talked about this week. I had a really great study we talked about yesterday about saturated fat and its impact on your health, But I think sometimes it's good to peel back the layers and to get a little bit deeper philosophically as to why humans interact the way they do, why we behave in various ways, and sometimes there's interesting reasons that you don't even think about. Like they're there all along, but you just don't really think about them until you get into a situation where it comes face to face and you're going, what in the world? And so today, what I'm going to talk about is specific reasons why, when you speak very clearly and you communicate a message very understandably, there's no question what you're saying, da 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 da, you can still be misunderstood. And if I'm being honest with you, pretty much my whole life, I feel like sometimes I run into situations where I've said words and those words were taken in the complete opposite way that I intended. And I'm sure you can think of examples of that in your own life where you say something, in your mind it sounds good, in your mind you're clearly communicating what you mean and saying exactly what you're trying to say, but then someone else hears that and goes, well, wait a minute, why are you saying, and it's this opposite thought, and you're going, what in the world, how did you get there? And I'm seeing this quite a bit right now within the realm of talking about COVID-19, talking about race relations. It just seems to really be amped up. And so as a public service today here on Jimmy Rants, I thought I would read from an article from Psychology Today. I read a lot from their articles because they have some really great information. But I found this one called 9 Reasons It's So Easy to Be Misunderstood, because I feel like if you don't understand why people are misunderstanding you, then you keep saying things without context of this, and then you get mad because they respond in a way that's negative when you didn't mean it in that way at all. But the 9 reasons they talk about in this article really shine a bright light on this. So I hope this is educational for those of you engaging in conversation, especially online. You're going to run into this quite a bit. You think you're being crystal clear, but it may not matter. How many times have you thought you were communicating absolutely clearly, only to discover that your words were taken in a way you could never have imagined, and likely much more negatively so? Just hang out on Facebook or Instagram, write some comments on YouTube. You could write the most beautiful prose in the world, P-R-O-S-E, and it won't matter. People will fight you. I've run into this quite a bit lately where I will write words that are not forceful in any way. In fact, I go out of my way to be extremely tactful in my writing and in my speaking. I do not seek to inflame anybody with anything I write. It's all covered in love and respect and just trying to seek out understanding. And yet sometimes those words get misconstrued and people get their panties in a wad, so to speak, and then it becomes into something a lot more than you realize. And again, I'm not alone in that. I'm sure a lot of you guys are experiencing this exact same thing right now. So in this article, there are 9 varying explanations as to why communication that however carefully you deliver it, whether in oral or writing, might be quite different from the communication actually received, and doubtless there are many others beyond these 9 I'm about to share with you. But you ready for this? This is really educational. When I read this, I went, yep, yep, yep. And so I think you're gonna really like this. Number 1, reasons why it's so easy to be misunderstood. The other person's mind just wanders. So when someone is reading something you've written or you're talking to them, they're not really hearing you. Their mind wanders. Either they weren't tuned into you, or without consciously having planned it, their brains temporarily went offline. I know a lot of people's brains who are not just temporarily offline. I think they're completely offline all the time, permanently. But that's another story for another day. But you know those people, and you can even see it in their eyes, and nothing is worse. If you're having a conversation with me, nothing ticks me off more if we're talking face to face than if I'm talking to you and we're not making eye-to-eye contact and you start to look off to the side. I can tell you when I've worked in jobs before where I'm supposed to be talking with someone and having communication back and forth with this someone, the worst thing they could do is look away. Because if you look away, then you're automatically telling me what I'm saying is not important, what I'm saying does not matter to you. Or not just look away, look at their phone. Oh my gosh, please do not talk to me in a conversation and attempt to look at your phone and think I'm not gonna notice that. So, am I alone in this? Like, surely other people kind of get ticked off by that. They might have been preoccupied with other things, and that happens too. You know, people have things on their mind, and so maybe you're saying something consciously, but it's not registering because there's all kinds of things on the mind of that person. And I can tell you right now, I've got a ton of things on me right now that I'm thinking about. But if I'm in a conversation with someone one-on-one, then I'm gonna make sure I'm paying a close attention to that person. I've been on some video calls with various friends, and same thing. On there, I'm like, don't look away. If you need to look away, say, okay, hang on a second, I'll be right back. But don't act like you look away and I'm not noticing that. Nevertheless, you may need to take some responsibility, for it's also possible that you started talking without making sure that you got their attention. Now, this is a good point too. If someone's looking away and you just start talking, you can't assume they're hearing you talk. You have to say, hey, and whatever their name is, and then they turn to you, and once you know you have their attention, then you start the conversation. So that's on you, the communicator. Remember, our minds are always occupied with something. Now, that's an important thing to remember. People say, I don't want to think about anything. Well, your mind's always going to think of something. Right now, I'm thinking of, I have to deliver this Jimmy Rants, and I want to communicate it clearly, and I want people to get good, useful information out of this, and I hope I don't have a booger hanging out of my nose. Did that zit that I woke up with at the corner of my nose, is it gone now? Those are the things I'm thinking about. You might be thinking about, why am I looking at this man in the blue shirt? We're always thinking of something. It's only fair that if you want others to give you their undivided attention, that you ask for it first. And this is so good. And of course, this is more interpersonal kind of communication, not necessarily online, but I think it's good skills for you to learn in real life so that when you do go online, you understand the dynamic there. Number 2, again, if you joined us late, we're going over 9 reasons why it's so easy to be misunderstood. And number 2, the other person is tired. They're in a state of fatigue. So if someone is in brain fog, and I'll tell you, for me, it's not brain fog. For me, it's my circadian rhythm kicks in really hard early in the evening. So it's why I try to do almost all my work by 5 o'clock. By 5 o'clock, I start getting droopy-eyed. And by 6 o'clock, 6:30, I'm shutting down. And by 8 o'clock, I'm almost in bed, if not already in bed. And that's just the way my body works. And then I'm up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, usually somewhere about 3, 4, or 5 in the morning, somewhere in that area, depending on what time I go to sleep. And so don't assume that they're just not interested in what you're saying. Don't assume that what you're telling them is going to be remembered if they're in a state of fatigue in their brain for whatever reason. Maybe it's at nighttime and they're already more than ready to hang it up for the day. That's me. That notwithstanding, you still make efforts to engage them. You're significantly increasing the likelihood that you'll be misunderstood. Yeah, when I get requests to be on podcasts, for example, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go live at 7 p.m. I'm like, yeah, you're going live at 7 p.m. I'm nowhere near 7 p.m., I promise you. Now, if you wanna make it 7 a.m., I'm there, but 7 p.m., yeah, not so much. And so just realize that time of day, state of mind, it can make a difference. And maybe someone just casually comes across some social media post that you did when they're in a very tired state, and they just read a few words and they interpret in their tired mind what they think you're saying. Or especially if it's an image of some sort, if someone has an image as a picture or a video on a post that they wrote, and all they see is the picture or the video, and they don't actually read your commentary, they jump to conclusions because they have a tired mind, and then it becomes a misunderstanding. They may just not have enough mental acuity at the moment to be following what you're saying, and that they may be too tired even to articulate it. That's interesting too. Consider that, as any good comic would tell you, timing is everything. It's imprudent, if not downright foolish, to approach anything complex or conflictual when your potential listener is listened out. So that's why you have to always be paying attention when you're trying to communicate something to the state of mind of the reader and or listener. Well, the problem on social media is people access it at all times of the day. And let's put it this way. I have posted things weeks, months, years ago that then people will write to me and say, well, I don't understand why you said this. And one yesterday was, they were talking about one of the social injustice posts that I did recently. And, well, you're for social injustice, but I see on the same day you post that, it was not the same day, on the same day you post that, you post something about this guy that he's all for this, this, and this, and I can't believe you would be for that, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like this guilt by association. And I'm going, what? Like, conflated all of these things all into one, and it's a great way to be misunderstood when you take things out of context like that. But I guess he needed a nap. We'll give him a nap. If you joined us late, we are going over 9 reasons you are misunderstood. I feel like with all the conflicts happening online with COVID-19 and the race relations and even politics and all the areas of life that we have conflicts over, we need some skills to understand why our communication is not being as understood as well as we think it is. So the first one was people's minds wander. The second one, people have a state of fatigue or they're tired. The third one, and this is a big one online, the other person is mad at you. I can tell you with 100% fact that sometimes I will write things online and I know that certain people are going to say something negative about whatever I write about. And their only reason for saying anything negative is they're mad at me for whatever their reasons. So you've got to keep that in mind. If you're trying to communicate something to someone who is mad at you, maybe try to resolve that first, or you're going to be misunderstood. Keep in mind that if the other individual is emotionally upset with you, whatever you say or write to them is likely to be taken unfavorably. And it's just a reality of life. We all have these interpersonal relationships. I can think of very specific people in my life right now that there is literally nothing I could say that it would not be opposed by them. And it's just, you just have to come to terms with that there's going to be people, they're going to be mad at you for whatever the reasons. There's so many reasons why that could happen, but you just have to know if you're trying to communicate something and someone's actively mad at you, you're not going to get through to them. So this is hardly the time to be making your most forceful argument to convince them that your point of view is justified or even worse, superior to theirs. Rather, in such instances, your job, if you're willing to accept it, is to hear them out and to be the speaker, or not be the speaker, but rather the auditor listening, and to see whether you can validate where they're coming from, though it may contrast sharply with your own perspective. So if someone's mad at you, let them talk. Let them put it out there. It's almost the whole adage of be the bigger man, be the bigger person, and let them air their feelings. And if you disagree, gently listen to what they have to say and then try to have a conversation that way. The problem is most people are mad on both sides. So if someone's mad at you, you're probably mad at them, and neither one of you is willing to give an inch. And to me, that's unfortunate, because I think you can have so much good communication if you're willing to lay aside your ill feelings and try to work things out. If you want to recognize the legitimacy of your position, you'll probably first need to summon up the patience, understanding, and compassion to listen sympathetically to theirs. In general, only by doing so they might be willing to listen to you without projecting onto your words a negative, distorted meaning born of their already being angry and irritated with you. So it's something that I've tried to do online that I realize there are people who hate Jimmy more, and it is what it is. I mean, I can't help it that if you don't like me for whatever the reasons, maybe I talk too Southern, maybe I look too fat, whatever your reasons for not liking me, and being mad at me, it is what it is. I got one guy on Facebook, I'll post on a Facebook page. Literally every single thing I post, doesn't matter what I put, he comes on with a negative personal attack against me. And it is what it is. I don't know what his beef is with me, but I can't concern myself. But I always engage him in a kind, gentle way. And, you know, you try to understand people and see where they're coming from. And if you're trying to communicate a message and people lash back, the gut inclination is to lash back at them. And I'm saying, okay, if they're mad at you, maybe try to engage kindly, softly, empathetically, what were the words? Patiently, understandingly, and compassionately, and then listen sympathetically to what their concerns are. And that's how you can resolve some of this conflict, so that then when you communicate something the next time, there may be more receptive to it. Number 4, the other person is negatively sensitized to you. This is a big one online as well. Your relationship may have deteriorated to the point that almost anything that comes out of your mouth will be received in a negative light. We all have people like that. We all have people in our lives that you could say the sky is blue. No, it's green. Grass is green. No, it's yellow. And they're just going to take a contrarian view because they only see you in a negative light. And we see this in the political realm. I mean, think about some of the most famous politicians out there right now. They literally could say anything in the world, anything, and some group of people would be negative towards whatever that is that they said. And it's gotten ugly in the political realm. I don't even really watch much of the politics, because in the day-to-day, it's just nonsense. It's like, he said this. No, it's this, the exact opposite. And it's like, okay, does he not ever have any kind of like positive thing that you want to say? No, he does not. Because he's seen in a negatively sensitized way. And we see it all across the board. It's sad. Whatever you say is likely to be interpreted unfavorably. In a distressed marriage, your partner now afflicted with a strong bias against you, and so no longer willing to give you any benefit of the doubt, is likely to perceive your explicit or implied meaning as something opposite to your possible benign meaning or even reconciliatory intentions. And this is a funny part of human interaction. People read into words what they want to read into. Like, words are just words. They're on the paper. How you interpret those words can vary based on your view of that person writing those words. So if you already have a sensitized view that's a negative one towards someone, and they write something that then has words, but then you hear it in a snarky voice, those words are going to be taken far differently than perhaps that same amount of words coming at it from a very soft, gentle, compassionate place. And I think that's where we get into trouble. People write me all the time, I can't believe you said da 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 da. And I'm like, how are you hearing that? And then they'll write back, oh, you're saying this. I'm like, oh my God, no. No. What I'm saying is this and this and this. And they're like, well, I didn't read it that way. Oh, I can't help how you read it, but how I wrote it. This is why sometimes communication can be a little bit misconstrued, because people will read one set of words and assume you mean something that they have in their worldview when you didn't have that even in your mind whatsoever. This is why we have conflicts on social media, because people want to interpret words in the way they want them interpreted, and you already have a negative view of someone, you're going to interpret it in the worst possible way. If you're serious about quelling the hostility that's overtaken your relationship, here's one of the best things you can do. As non-defensively as possible, clarify what you meant to say, even as you empathetically identify with the reality of what this person has said, what they thought you said. Sharing that you appreciate how, given all your disagreements and misunderstandings that might have led to this stalemate, they might not be able to help adversely misunderstanding you. So I think when someone misunderstands you, you don't jump back and double down because they already have this negative view. That will do no good. The best thing you can do is return with a kind word and seek to understand why they believed what they believed, and then gently say, well, I can understand how you got to that point believing this about what I wrote, but here is what the intention of my words. I wrote something yesterday and somebody just flat out said, I don't care what the intent of your words were. I heard this, and so it was this. And I'm going, okay, my intent of my words matter because words mean things. And when you say things, especially online, and someone reads them in a far different way than you intended, you can't do anything about that other than explain what your position is even clearer. Which is why I say, before you write anything online, just be careful of how it could be misconstrued. Now, you're never going to completely eliminate that, especially here on Facebook. It's gotten so nasty. It's starting to get this way on Instagram. But you've got all these people that are reading things through their own prism and their own thinking about what they believe they are. And if they already have a propensity for the person that wrote those words to not like that person, then it just drives it even more. And this is a problem when you're trying to communicate online and people are misunderstanding what you're saying. And then you can sit there and try to explain what you meant, but then the piling on starts to happen. This is the bad part of online. Once you write something and then one person shares their misconstrued interpretation of what you said, then it cascades into all these people listening to the interpretation of what you said rather than what you said, and it just gets ugly really fast. And quite frankly, I'm disinterested in that kind of tit for tat. I mean, if you feel like you have to engage in that, you're not my people. I think people in general need to be a lot more kind and gentle. Benefit of the doubt needs to be implored. I think we could get along a whole lot better if we don't jump to the conclusion that everybody is our enemy that disagrees with us. Number 5, you're reminding the other person of something from their past. Ooh. So this is another thing, that when you write something and it triggers some memory from someone else of a similar experience, oh my gosh, you might as well turn off everything in their brain, because all they're going to go to in their head is that thing that they are being reminded of. This particular reason for another's mistaking your meaning is far more common than you even realize. Psychologically, though, it makes perfect sense. One tip-off of such a mistaken identity is when, in anger, your partner says, "You're just like my mother or father." So assuming that you have substantial unresolved issues with either of your mother or father, and in the moment something about your behavior reminded them of that person, you can be almost sure that whatever you said revived feelings from this parental acrimony. So that's a real life example, but even online, you can hear people say things and it might conjure up something in your own personal life. It might conjure up something of an action of someone else online. We just need to be mindful that people are going to be reminded of other things that have happened to them. And especially if it's a similar situation. Well, this happened with this person, so therefore you're doing the same thing. It's going to happen to me. And it's real for a lot of people. Even beyond this, there's always the possibility, and it might only be some coincidental physical similarity, that another person misunderstood you because you unwittingly brought up something negative for them, the dynamics of which you couldn't possibly appreciate. It doesn't take much, guys. Relatability, especially online, is what people are looking for. And so if you find relatability in someone or something, and then they start to do something that reminds you of that thing they're relating to, and then they have a negative memory of that thing you're relating to, why would you not think they wouldn't bring that negative memory to what you're communicating now? And that's what makes it so hard online when people randomly get upset. Now, the funniest one is hashtag unfollowing. This is very insensitive. And you're going, what? Like, I don't understand. And so usually what I'll do is pop on there, well, thank you for expressing your concern. Can you explain to me what you thought about what I said was insensitive? I definitely did not have any intention in that way. Can you explain further? Sometimes they'll write back and you can engage, but most of the time, honestly, they're just gone. And it's unfortunate that that's kind of the public discourse of the day when it comes to social media. Whenever you feel seriously misconstrued, it's wise to gingerly say something like, "What did you hear me say? I'm really puzzled by your reaction. Could I have reminded you of someone else or something else that had happened in your life?" And I think if you do it in that way and you ask those honest questions, that anybody observing that interaction with this person is going to say, hey, you sought to seek out why they felt that way. And most people will understand that. Rather than jumping to a conclusion, if you have a concern about anything, including myself, anyone online ever writes, just write to that person directly. Send them a DM. If you know their email, write them an email. Just say, hey, the other day you said this, this, and this on Jimmy Rants. I didn't like that, and here's why, da-da-da. And then that gives that person an opportunity to then write back and say, oh, wow, I could see how you see it that way, but no, that's not how I saw it at all. I meant it, da-da-da-da-da. And when you have these communications, you take away that strife, you take away the, you're a bad person, no, you're a bad person, and it just never leads to anything. That's when you can have good human interaction. We're not meant to be in conflict. Like, think about all the unnecessary stress people have just because they stay in constant conflict over stupid stuff, over misunderstandings. It happens so often, you guys. Number 6, the other person is strong-willed and rigid. You know any people like that in your life? Has stringent, intransigent opinions or isn't able to take in any viewpoint other than their own. We call these people narcissists. And if you run into a narcissist online, there's really no sense in trying to engage a narcissist because that person has no inkling in their mind to ever be wrong. That person never wants to engage you. They just want you to hear what they have to say. And if you don't bow to their every whim of what they have to say, then they just don't even give you any credence. So we have to be aware of these strong-willed, narcissist type of people. Unquestionably, whatever you might say to someone this uncompromising will pass through a filter protectively held in place and rendering impossible their ability to accurately, objectively, and sympathetically comprehend what you're saying. So if you're someone online and you run into someone who writes this very strong opinion, and then you are polite back to them and you give them information that kind of clarifies your position, and they come back doubled down with how wrong you are and how horrible a human being you are, you have to know you're dealing with a narcissist. And you have to know that they are unreasonable and there's just no engaging those people. You let them spread their hate and their ugliness and you stay kind through it all, and don't engage them. It's not worth your time. Mental energy, don't waste your time. Their archly defensive or mentally blinded stance inevitably leads them to twist things around so they remain safe and secure within their own exceedingly narrow comfort zone. So I've seen this happen where people will engage someone like this and they will offer up facts. They'll present like a study, or they'll present like some kind of a link to somewhere that disproves what they're saying. And then they'll say, well, that's one study that's cherry picked, and so you can't really prove that as proof. And so it will always be a rationalization that their position is the right one, even in the face of obvious evidence being presented to counter it. So this is hard. Like if you communicate, you're going to run into these kinds of people. And trust me, I've been at this over 15 years. I have seen those people all the time. And the funny part about those people is they're strong for a period of time and then they go away and you never see them again. So they usually fizzle out because they realize nobody's agreeing with them. You know, screw this, I'm going to get off of blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. If this is the case, you need to either be painstakingly careful in how you approach them, or if it's a viable option, not approach them about topics to which they've already shown extreme reactivity. The problem is in 2020, everything you talk about is being responded to with extreme reactivity. So if you haven't noticed, don't mention anything about coronavirus or social injustice or politics. Not a good idea in 2020 because you will get jumped on by a lot of people just like this. Number 7, the other person might be less educated or sophisticated than you are. What assumptions might you be making about the depth or breadth of another's knowledge? Now, I'll tell you, as someone who communicates for a living, both here on Jimmy Rants on a daily basis, but also on my podcast and in writing on social media posts and in writing in books, I take great pride in trying to communicate very, very clearly. And I don't assume anything. When I'm interviewing somebody, you guys, and you might have noticed this in my style, when I have someone on my podcast, or even just yesterday, I recorded an episode of my Thursday podcast called Real Talk. And Dr. Will Cole, my co-host, said a name. He said Dr. Amen. And he just kept going as if people in the audience would know who Dr. Amen was. And so I interjected. So for those of you that don't know, Dr. Amen, that's Dr. Daniel Amen. And so that I'm just trained. I've done this for so long that I don't assume people know anything. I always try to overemphasize things so that people that don't know get caught up. Now, sometimes I get criticized for that. Well, you don't have to keep saying that BHB stands for beta hydroxybutyrate. I'm like, you want to bet? You know how many people come into the fray all the time that don't know what BHB means? I remember on one of the low-carb cruises, there was one of the speakers said something about keto. And so I was out in the hallway, and this person comes running out to me, and they're like, Jimmy, what's a keto? And I went, oh my God, like I thought you came on the low-carb cruise, everybody would have a basic knowledge of low-carb and keto. They didn't even know what keto meant. So I have learned to never assume that people are greatly informed about all these things. Now, it frustrates people that are those nerdy type that know all the ins and outs of everything. But for the newbies who are trying to learn the jargon and learn everything about this, explaining and even over-explaining is so critical. And I know it gets laborious if you hear someone trying to interpret it all the time, but there's a reason for that, because you got new people. And for me, it's a lot better for me to communicate it very clearly, to put it out there in very simple language so that everybody understands, rather than assuming that they have the education, they have the sophistication to know what I'm talking about. Especially when I'm interviewing somebody that does like the alphabet soup. Oh yeah, we're gonna run the CBC to get the WBC. No, hang on. Let's interpret what all that alphabet soup means so that then the end consumer can be better informed. Might your communication have included an allusion for which they're totally unfamiliar? Again, language means everything. It could have referred to a character like Prometheus, Sappho, or Ulysses, a literary work like Madame Bovary, The Trial, or The Sound and the Fury, or a word like acquiescence, fulsome, or nonplussed, which you wrongfully estimated the individual would know the meaning of, but frankly, many do not. So yeah, again, I use a few fancy words from time to time, but not overly so. And it's by design. It's not, I was an English major in college. I know a lot of fancy schmancy words. And so, but I don't try to overemphasize any funky monkey words because I'm a translatable kind of communicator. And if people don't know what some of these words mean, it makes no sense. Like sometimes I'll read a New York Times article and you can tell these people are highly educated in the writing process, that they are ruthlessly enamored by the very mere presence of their ubiquitous writing style that goes down the foremost. And it's just they go on and on and on with all this like verbosity that at the end of the day, most people are like, yeah, can you get to the point? Like, what are we doing here? Communicate clearly. And it's something that I always seek to do by not dumbing it down. I hate that phrase, dumbing it down. But meeting people, and I always say, especially within the context of podcasting, I always say I try to speak to the lowest common denominator. And again, that's not to dismiss that that person is somehow stupid, but you do try to reach people at the level of their understanding. And if that means you over explain to someone who's a little more adept at this, it is what it is. It's why sometimes like Dave Asprey and Ben Greenfield and some of these more kind of cerebral type of podcasts, I can listen to them, I can hang with them, although they do challenge me a little bit. But I sit there as I'm listening to their podcast and I'm going, all right, how would I interpret this to my audience if I was interviewing? Because there's no way I could just do BDMF and I'm just like, no. I would have to like be like overly emphasizing it, because that's where my heart is. That's where my brain goes when I hear complex things. My immediate thing is, let's make it simpler. It's the same with jargon and acronyms, technical terms, verbal shortcuts you may be so familiar with that you assume everyone else must be cognizant of them, but many may never have encountered them. And in the keto and health space, there's so many. OMAD, like every time somebody says OMAD on a podcast, I always say 1 meal a day. Or, I mean, there's just so many of them that it just gets laborious, that if you don't spell it all out, you know who's the worst at it is the practitioners. These people that are doctors or that are in research, they're just so used to using the shortcut jargon that when they get on a podcast and they start talking about things, they always forget, oh, I take for granted that everybody knows this, but not everybody does know this. Number 8, we got one more after this one. The other person may have quite different associations with the words you're using. This is a big one, guys. When you're trying to communicate and you use a word that you think is being interpreted in one way, and then someone else sees that exact same word and goes, whoa, wait, what? It happens. What certain words connote to you may be dramatically different from what they connote to the person you're speaking to, particularly those who do not speak English as their first language. I get a lot of emails from people. All right, you said this, and I'm trying hard to understand what you mean by this. And so sometimes rephrasing it or saying another phrase or group of words to help interpret what I said. They're, oh, that's what you meant. They were trying to like use some kind of a Google Translate to see what the word meant in their language, and it just wasn't communicating. But in a variety of situations, you could be misunderstood because the meaning you ascribe to a word or its nuance just isn't what's getting transmitted. For example, complimenting the innocence or spontaneity of someone's behavior, you might employ the word childlike, but someone else may refer and regard this term as synonymous with the much less flattering childish and take strong offense. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times I have said words, and there was one yesterday in a post that I did that somebody just took such great offense to. I'm trying to remember the context of it, but it was the one where I was talking about some of the race stuff, and there was a young man that attacked this Macy's employee, and I said something about, you know, the current environment has really motivated some to take action, I'm trying to remember I can't remember the exact word, but whatever the word was, they were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that they were whatever the word was. And I'm going, wait a minute. Like, all I meant was influenced by, encouraged by, emboldened, I believe was the word that I used. And they're like, emboldened, you mean that you're trying to point fingers at, I'm like, no, that's not what I mean at all. And yeah, it was interpreted in that way because that was the association with that word that they had. Whereas emboldened in my head was they felt empowered. They felt like they were given permission. That's what I meant by that. So you can get very much misinterpreted by people misinterpreting your words. The last one, number 9. The other person may not have correctly understood a word or phrase you used because of your pronunciation, accent, or inflection, which may have led them to mostly negative misinterpret your meaning. Or they may have altogether missed your message because of a bad phone connection, hearing loss, or even an information processing deficit. I can tell you sometimes when you speak words for a living, and I'm on camera with you guys an hour a day, Monday through Friday. I do 3 podcasts a week, 2 of them new shows. And so I've got hours upon hours upon hours of me speaking on camera or speaking behind a microphone, in addition to all the words that I write in all my social media posts, and then writing in books. So there's plenty of opportunity for people to mishear what I'm saying, miss the inflection. Maybe the southern accent kind of makes people think you mean one thing when you mean another. There's so many things, you guys. Again, if someone's reaction to you doesn't seem to make much sense, it's advisable to ask them what they heard. Certainly, you don't want to pass up the opportunity to correct their misinterpretation. And that's a big thing. Anytime someone says, I take great offense to what you said, and I almost always say, what did I say? Can you repeat back what you heard me say? Because I want to hear what you heard. And then once I hear what you heard me say, what you thought you heard me say, then I can say, well, no, that's not what I said at all. Here's what I said, and say it even more clear. And it's incumbent upon all of us to try to be extremely clear when we write. Sometimes I will get comments from people and they're taken totally out of context on social media, for example. And or even like when people are watching this on replay on IGTV, they'll make a comment about something I've said in the middle of the thing, and it's totally out of context. And I'm going, wait, what are you talking about? Like, let's give me context. That all matters. All right, so what'd you think about that, guys? Again, that was from Psychology Today, 9 Reasons It's So Easy to Be Misunderstood. I think in this day and age where we are pretty much hanging out on social media, and there's so many people talking about everything under the sun, we need to have a little more understanding. We need to have a little more compassion and respect for each other so we're not misunderstood. And I would not jump to the conclusion that someone said something inflammatory without giving them the benefit of the doubt first. Now, if they're obviously inflammatory, that's one thing. But if someone you see is making an effort to say something in a gentle way, don't just make your first inclination to attack what your interpretation is of what they said. Actually go to them and see what's going on. Hey, it seems to me what you wrote was this, this, and this. Is that what you meant? And so then they give you the opportunity. Oh, no, that's not what I meant at all. I can see how you would read it that way, but here's what I said, this, this, and this. Then you have this nice kind of coming together, and maybe what you do, rather than having a criticism put out there publicly, maybe what you do is you let that person go back and change their words on a social media post, for example, that makes it even clearer. I've done that many a times. And I'll tell you, my style of writing is when I write a social media post, I write it in raw form. Then I go back and reread it and make adjustments. Reread it, make adjustments. Reread it, make adjustments. This is how I write books, guys. I refine. Then, once I get to the very end where I think it's absolutely perfect, polished, right number of characters for Instagram, guess what I do? That's right, I reread it one more time, slowly. And so when I post something, when I post it and it goes up there, it is absolutely immaculate. It's what I meant to say. I can't control interpretation of what I said, but the words themselves are very well vetted out, and they say what I mean. I never hurriedly put up a post, because that's when you set yourself up for trouble, where people might misinterpret what you say, or you misspell a word, or autocorrect gets you. Trust me. I've had autocorrect get me on some things, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant at all, but it's going to come across bad if I don't fix that. So it's why I'm a bit anal retentive about making sure the words are what I meant. All right, I want to see what you guys have to say about this one. It was a really good article. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to come over here to Instagram first, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And if you missed it earlier, we have a special bonus episode with Shelby Gordon over on YouTube. Go check it out. It's today's episode of the Living La Vida Low Carb Show. But we have that as a bonus video. Linda says, I was watching that, but switched to here, and then we'll go back when your live is over. Oh, okay, cool. Glad you were watching. All right, so general questions, Musing Poet, you're going to have to wait till Friday. I don't do general questions when I'm doing specific topics during the week, but Friday, that's a perfect Ask Me Anything question for Friday. Please come back on Friday, and I'd be happy to address it. Jack says, I've been attacked for clarifying the meaning of a headline that people were having a negative reaction to without reading it further. They didn't want the full story. They just read into the headline. Yeah, I've talked about that phenomenon before, Jax, where people only read headlines. And because of headlines, they think that's everything about what's in that story. And then when you kind of get into the nitty gritty of, well, you know, the study that the headline's talking about, the study actually said this, this, and this, which actually runs a little bit counter to what the headline said. Or the headline's incomplete. It's a part of the story, but it's not the full story. And people get mad about that. Okay, well, you know, I can't help it that you're not reading the whole story. You got to read the whole story for the context. But that's more common than we want to admit, sadly. But it is a part of the society that we live in, and it's another one of these reasons why you're misunderstood. People will sometimes say, well, I read a headline that said, or I've read a study that said, and okay, what's the study? Well, it was in a headline, and okay, what journal was it in? I don't know. Okay, well, we can't really have a nice communication if you can't help me understand how you came to this conclusion. So thank you, Instagram. Let me pop over here to my Facebook page. What's up, guys? See what you guys have to say about this one. Jenny says, yes, you do. Talking about explaining. Yeah, I do that by design. I know it makes some people mad because they're like, well, you don't have to explain all these things every time. Yes, I do. Like, people rely on me to kind of be an interpreter of things. That's kind of my jam. That's kind of what I'm known for. I mean, that's literally what the Clarity books were all about. Keto Clarity, Cholesterol Clarity was to really simplify the language so much. And even in those books, even after I explained what BHB meant and explained it, I still, all throughout the book in Keto Clarity, continued to explain. I didn't assume you remembered from page 12. By the time you get to page 47, I'm still explaining what things mean. And so it's a good communication tactic that I wish more people would do, not just assume that people understand. Kira says, if people have been locked down and eating garbage, as you refer to it, do you think the diet impacts the cognitive function of interpreting what text says? I think it does. It's almost like COVID is causing mental health issues. Oh, there's no like causing mental health issues. I think the stress over COVID has indeed caused some major mental health issues. But to your point, yes, cognitive function, interpreting what things mean, your brain doesn't work well. And ironically, thank you for this, Kira. Ironically, on tomorrow's episode of Real Talk, Dr. Will Cole and I address this subject of leaky brain. So everybody's heard of leaky gut, and so leaky gut then can lead to leaky brain, and there's various health things that happen to your brain, depression, anxiety, and all these things that a lot of people are dealing with. And it's because of this leaky brain issue. So we're going to talk about that at great length tomorrow on Real Talk. So llvlc.com Thursday. Don't miss that. And I'm going to break some news here because it's not been shared anywhere else. You ready? Tomorrow is Dr. Will Cole's last day on Real Talk. You notice I'm letting that sink in a little bit. It's kind of a joke because he's taking a bit of a leave of absence. He's had so much request for his online services that he needed to make more room available in his schedule to kind of get these new patients brought in. So he's going to be gone about 8 to 12 weeks. So I'm going to have some guest co-hosts on that show. but just thought I'd break that while I'm here. But yeah, go listen to tomorrow's show. It's Will's last show before his break, and we talk specifically about that. So thank you for that, Kira, and thank you, Facebook. All right, let's pop over here to my YouTube channel. I saw a bunch of comments coming in over here. Whoa. Dot Connector says, when I find a narcissist, I run the other way. Yeah, that's the smart thing to do. Edith says, I forgot, have you ever debated Vegan Gains? I don't know who Vegan Gains is. I think he's pretty obstinate in his views. You could take him down in about 3 seconds. I'm from a family of narcissists and bipolar. Proof will always knock them out cold. Yeah, I haven't had Vegan Gains. I've had the 30 bananas a day guy, Harley Johnstone, on. He was just obnoxious more than anything. Dot Connector, people are so brainwashed, indoctrinated, and lack the intelligence to comprehend most subjects. That's probably true. Edith says, I vowed I'd stop running and let the life cycle take care of the narcissists and their pet flying monkeys. YouTube is on fire today with the comments. They can run, but they cannot hide forever. No, they can't. Blame Generation X and its predecessors for worshiping pop culture. We need to fight this garbage and bury it. We follow the loudest announcers too readily. And Edith and Dot Connector are having a nice little conversation back and forth, it sounds like. So, yes. Dot Connector said, interesting article. Awesome. Edith says, context, what? You're asking people to actually listen and contemplate and define messages? How dreadful. Me being sarcastic. Best comments of the day from YouTube. Thank you for that, you guys. All right, let's pop back over here to my Instagram. Jack says, I often need to do even further research than even the article behind the headline. Yeah. When you're reading a headline that gets your attention, that's its job, is to get your attention. Then you click through and you read the story. Sometimes the story doesn't always give you the whole story. So then you go look up the research paper, and then within the research paper, you look up the affiliations of the researchers, you look at who paid for the funding. Yeah, there's so many things, and yet people see some headline and they just believe that. And I've talked about that on previous Jimmy Rants, how we think that when we hear something new that we vet it out and then we come to whether we believe it or not. No. Psychologists have found that when we read something, even just a headline, your first inclination is to believe. You just believe it, carte blanche. No evidence whatsoever. You just read and believe. This is why we have people that believe things that are irrational, because they hear them and they just automatically believe them and they don't actually vet them out. Temple says she can't wait to listen to the bonus episode. Well, yes, please do. Please do. It was really fascinating. She's a neat lady, Shelby. All right, guys, so that's the deal here. There are a lot of reasons why you could be speaking so clearly. You could make your message so understandable. You could be using the best facts. You could be using all this great communication skills, and these 9 reasons we went over here today will make you completely misunderstood. And it's not always your fault. Sometimes, as we talked about in the article, sometimes it is your fault, and sometimes you can do things to help. And when you're misunderstood, the last thing you want to do is lash back at this person, especially if they're ugly towards you. Trust me, you guys, you want a crash course in people being ugly to you online, Jimmy Moore is your guy. I don't know what it is about me. I don't know if it's my accent. I don't know if it's because I still have weight on the body. I don't know if my voice just like grinds on people. I don't know what the deal is, but I get a lot of haters and a lot of people that they think they have the right to talk to me ugly. And my modus operandi is never to lash back in kind, because that doesn't lead anywhere positive. I'm always seeking to understand why people believe what they believe and articulate how they articulate, because it helps me better understand human nature so I can be a better communicator to you guys here, for example, on Jimmy Rants. So when people do that, my first inclination is not lash back. My first inclination is, thank you so much for writing to me. Thank you for sharing your comments. I definitely see where you're coming from. Can you help me understand? And then ask for clarifying questions about what they mean. And sometimes people don't want to engage when you're trying to be reasonable. Wait, I've got this negative image in my head. You're unreasonable. You're a narcissist. You're this, you're that. And then when I try to, or demonstrate that I'm exactly the opposite of what they think I am, it just disarms them. It does. Jack says, shh, don't use terms like modus operandi. People will think you're insulting them. Yeah, I guess you could say that. But if I say MO, is that a little less PC to say MO? It may be the name Rants that makes them take it as permission. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Jenny. I had a friend of mine write me the other day, and there's like, wow, you're so negative on your Jimmy Rants. I'm like, oh, really? Like, most of my Jimmy Rants fans love it. I'm passionate, but I wouldn't say I'm negative. Well, I just don't like the word rants. I'm like, well, have you actually watched the show? Because if you watch the show, rants is just a name. I'm not actually like ranting and raving and foaming at the mouth. It's just a name. It's a fun name, Jimmy Rants. It makes a cool little logo. But they took offense to that. And they even didn't like the logo because I was screaming. And they're like, oh, you're screaming in there. I'm like, you know that's called marketing, right? You're just trying to get people's attention. So the show, Jimmy Rants, and then my mouth wide open in a logo. Not the end of the world. Actually watch the show and you'll see it's not what you think it is. So I don't know if they're watching or not, but we'll find out soon, I suppose. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. Jimmy Rants! Ah! Join us live here on Instagram at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. We simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. You can watch the replay on IGTV. You can also watch the replay over on YouTube. Just type in the keyword Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. We also have an official website, jimmyrants.com, all the past episodes. And if you want to support what I'm doing here on Jimmy Rants, click on that Patreon page, and any amount will help us stay on the air. So guys, that's it for now. We'll be back again real soon with Jimmy Rants. Ah! I had too much fun at the end with that, didn't I? Oh, life is too short to get upset by people. You know, sometimes when people are mean and ugly and irrational, the best way to handle it is with humor. And I just had to learn that a long time ago. There's no way you stay sane in the online world for 15 plus years unless you learn to laugh at most of it. So I have learned to laugh at just about everything online now because it's redonkulous, as they say. But thank you guys for being here today. This was a lot of fun. And like I said, I love doing these kind of philosophical type of ones because it kind of peels back the layers of, okay, we're having these conversations, but sometimes things don't always get communicated very well. So, Carl Lenore in the house. What's up, my brother? He's a fellow podcaster, you guys. You don't know Carl. Go check out Carl. Put on your potty mouth ears, though, because dude, man, sometimes can go off on a tangent. And I love you for it, Carl. That's why you're you. But thank you for all that you're doing. I still read your stuff, Carl. See, Carl knows. He just LOL'd me, man. Carl, you and I have to do a podcast together again soon, man. Reach out to me on DM because I would love to do that. You are an interesting guy, and we're both professional broadcasters, so that would be a lot of fun for sure. So, all right, guys, let me pop off of here for now. Thank you for watching Jimmy Rants, and yeah, we'll see you again real soon. Bye. Bye, YouTube.